Alright, so hopefully I do this right this time. So this is quick setup for OBS. So the first thing is, I'm assuming you already have OBS downloaded and whatnot. You go to Twitch, to the main page, and there's various ways to get there. And you go down and you go to, I want to start broadcasting. And then it'll show you XSplit and OBS and all the other stuff that you can use. Well, right next to the name, it says setup guide or something. And you click on that, and that'll take you to this page. And this page will go through all of your settings and what to do. There's nothing I can really say about that. Just follow it, follow the directions. Some of it's kind of old, so stuff will be in slightly different places. But in general, it'll get you where you need to go. So then once you've got all of that, so the scene is the basic. So raiding is like my setup for when I'm streaming WoW and I'm raiding. Hanging out is just me setting up so that I can play any game. That one's just very mobile and I can move things around and nothing's like don't move anything because everything is exactly where it needs to be. And then of course there's the away from keyboard, which everyone should have. And then those are friends that I help set them up. So what you want to do, and hopefully the mouse still isn't in the right place. I don't know why for this recording the mouse is in the wrong place. Just gonna have to get used to it. Alright, so right click, you get add scene. We're not gonna do that because then it's gonna mess this recording up, but what you want to do is add scene. And then this will be completely blank. And then you right click again, and that's where you add your stuff. So the very, very basics that you're going to want to do is obviously your camera, your game. Those are the basics. So right now I'm on monitor capture, so you can see everything I'm doing and not just a window, not just a game, so on and so forth. So game capture, of course, you can name it whatever you want. Obviously, that's the same with all of these. You need to make sure you have the game up, otherwise it won't be here. So you choose World of Warcraft, and if you want people to see where your mouse is going, if it's that kind of game, you do that. Don't do stretch to image unless you just can't get the ratio right. If you need to stream like right now and you don't want to, and you can't, if you don't have the time to mess with it, then you can hit stretch image to fit screen. But it's not really something you want to do. So you choose that, and you hit OK, and oh, look, there's my game. But we don't want that right now. Doesn't seem to be changing. Oh, because I hit the wrong one. Okay. Here we go. So I turned off game capture so you could see what was going on. So the other thing you'd want to do is camera. I have mine in my global sources because, I use it for all of them, so might as well. And you can see that it hasn't been changed, so it's taking up all of this space. So we're just going to turn that off for right now. So the thing that you were saying that the camera is too big and you don't want it to interfere with the game, blah, blah, blah. So the first thing you see here is there's all this big... There, I'll have to do it differently. So there's all this big black space. That's because it's not fitted. So what you do is you go to Edit Scene, right there, and then you'd pick which one you want to mess with. So I'm hitting Monitor Capture. And you can see the red box that fills it. So you can either drag it around, or drag it this way, or do whatever you want. Or the easy way, if it's going to be a bottom one, you don't want to do it for any of the top ones, is you should just go down to Position and Size and you hit Fit to Screen, and it fills the whole screen. Easy peasy, right? So the next thing you want to do is camera. It was taking up most of the screen, so we're going to grab it and move. So you just select it, and then we can move it wherever we want and make it whatever size we want. One of the things it didn't tell me in the stuff that I watched and I thought was very cool once another broadcaster told me this, was that, I mean, if you look, you can go this way, you can go this way, but it all basically stays in one size when something's running in it. Like that, I was able to change it more because something wasn't running in it. I didn't have it selected. But now that it's selected, it wants to stay in one configuration. If that's something you want to change, you go to the edge of it, which I know, I'm sorry, I have no idea why my mouse is all messed up. My pointer is all messed up. And you hold shift. And then you can move it in all four directions without the whole thing changing. So that's super handy. It's not something you really want to do a lot, mostly with your camera, because then it messes up, the proportions of your camera, and same with your game. It'll mess up with the proportions of your game. So like something that's circular will look oval, you know. So the next thing that you need to worry about is the order. So when you have a bunch of things here, you want to make sure that the game capture, which is what's going to be your main thing, is at the bottom. So you want to change change the order and always move it to the bottom. So that's what's going to be your base. That's always going to be your base, and then whatever's on top of that, it's like a place setting for a dining room table. So there's the place setting is your game, and then your camera is the plate that goes on it, and then your I don't know, your text is would be your water glass, or your silverware. So the game capture is what the base is. So you want that on the bottom, and that's exactly how this is ordered. So you want to make sure that's right. Okay, so as far as getting the game to fit, because sometimes, like when I started this, you saw it was like, that's the wrong one. It was all like this. And you can stretch it, but sometimes that's not good because it'll look stretched. So the other way to change that is, let's get off edit scenes. You go into your settings and you go into your video. Because I found with mine, what did they say? They said they give you a certain one to set this at, a certain aspect ratio to set this at, and for me that didn't work because my monitor is old and it's not that base resolution. That's not what it does. So this is where you might have to do some major tinkering. I had to do a lot of tinkering, and then I wrote it down. I made sure I wrote it down after I was done, because sometimes a ghost gets in the machine and this stuff gets messed up. So it's just best to write the stuff down when you change things like this. So if you start your game and it's looking funky, and so you do fit to screen, and you fit it to screen, and it's still looking funky, then that's when you need to go back to your settings and go to your video and mess with those. The other thing is, if you're streaming and people are like, oh, I can't hear you, or you're too loud, or whatever, the first thing that you want to do is go into the mic auxiliary boost. It's the third one down, and that's where I had to change it so people could actually hear me, because I fiddled around with a lot of other stuff and I just wasn't getting loud enough. And I just moved this up by like 4 points, and everyone could hear me. It was like, oh, perfect. So all this stuff is usually default. This is how I have it set up, so I can change it so they can't hear vent, which we know was an issue. You want to make sure you set up your microphone noise gate. I have a very cheap mic, so it doesn't have a lot of filtering in itself. Um, I have a very good system that does it, but it's always good to do this. So you don't talk, and then you see where this bar is sitting. You might have to hit start preview. You can see me breathing there. Um, so you just want to adjust those so they're like right next to each other. This one is where the ambient sound is, and then this is where you start talking. So it'll kick in when you're talking. Most of the other stuff is stuff you really don't need to worry about. It's all good to go right out of the box. Um, you might want to fiddle with this one if you find that. Ooh, I think I just changed it. So you look at your dropped frame rate and your FPS, and if you're dropping frames like crazy, um, you want to. One of the things you want to do, you want to check to see if your computer is running too hot, because it is a lot for a computer to do the game and streaming and the web pages and so on and so forth. So you want to make sure your computer's not overheating. Throw a fan on it, an extra fan on it if you need to. And then you want to make sure that you're going to the right place. Um, and they go through this in the walkthrough. Um, yeah, so that's something that you might want to fiddle around with. And then this file path is if you want it to record these things. Because in Twitch, you can set it to record your stuff, but it'll only keep it for I think it's like 30 days unless you pay them the monthly subscription, and I think it's like 60 days. And that's why I set up YouTube.